Welcome back to the George Lopez show. Today we saw Blue Beetle, starring George Lopez and some people from Netflix shows.
Yep.
Yeah, the final movie of the DCU officially. Even though
No, because Aquaman 2 is coming out.
well, they said Aquaman 2's in the new DC universe.
No, this might be in the new DC universe.
No, they put out a statement where James Gunn says the DC universe starts when he makes his whatever the hell movie.
Superman?
Yeah.
But Aquaman 2 is coming out this year.
No,
So no.
I don't know anymore.
Creature Commandos is the first DCU product.
But also Blue Beetle's going to be carried into the DCU anyway, so this is basically the first one. But not officially or something, I don't know. I don't get it anymore. I can't keep up.
We'll figure it out. They'll figure it out eventually.
But this might...
It depends if this flops or not, really.
Probably. But yeah, Connor, what's the plot of Blue Beetle?
Blue Beetle takes place in a world where the Blue Beetle has had the mantle passed down twice. Dan Garrett had discovered the beetle and merged with it, and then he gave the beetle to Ted Kord, or the Scarab, and Ted Kord used it to become a vigilante, but then he goes missing, and his bitch sister takes it over and starts making Mexico into Wakanda. But the Mexican people...
She's white, so it's bad.
The Mexican people are unhappy about this. But Ted Kord's daughter tries to get rid of the Scarab or steal it from the lab because Ted Kord's sister is trying to make weapons out of it. So she puts it in a big boy's box, because that's what they got to sponsor the movie. And she says, "Don't open this big boy's box." And then he opens it, and the beetle, the Scarab, goes on to Jaime. And Jaime's like, "Oh no, I'm the Blue Beetle now," which makes me like Iron Man. Then he has an Iron Man fly around sequence. But then Ted Kord's sister's all pissed because she wanted to use the Scarab to make OMAC, which is like, would essentially be like an army of Blue Beetles. So she makes her bodyguard guy into OMAC, and he's gonna kill Blue Beetle, or kidnap Blue Beetle and harness his power and shit. And then Jaime learns the power of family and goes on an adventure with Ted Kord's daughter, but then he's captured, and then the family gets Blue Beetle weapons, and they fight on an X-Men Origins Wolverine Island.
Yeah.
And then, but the power was already transferred to OMAC. So OMAC says, "My suit's better than yours, Blue Beetle." And they get in a clone antagonist fight.
Yep. And then
To
Blue
save
Beetle says, "How did you
Mexico."
solve the freezing problem?"
No, he uses the power of family.
He says, "How did you solve the family problem?"
Spoiler alert, he perseveres. And the reason he perseveres is because he says, "My suit's my family."
My family
But
is better
Ted
than
Kord
yours,
is
Tony.
missing, and we don't solve the secret of Ted Kord. And since this movie is set to flop, we probably never will figure out what happened to Ted Kord, which is fine, I guess. Sure, he'll be in the new DC universe eventually, and the Justice League International with Booster Gold.
Yeah.
Anyways, Aiden, what did you think of Blue Beetle, also known as Hispanic Spider-Man Homecoming in an Iron Man suit?
It's Hispanic Iron Man, basically. Pretty much beat for beat. It's got some elements of Homecoming in there, but
Mostly he's just a quippy teenager.
He's a quippy teenager, but also it's just Iron Man. He gets the suit, and he doesn't know how to control it, and then he learns. And then an evil corporation that makes weapons that he has a vague relation to makes a weaponized version of his suit, and then the big guy controls it, and they have a clone antagonist battle, and the big guy has the bigger suit. But then he outsmarts the big guy, but he doesn't really outsmart him. He kind of just shoots him with a really big laser, but he figures out how to beat him through the power of family. It's Iron Man. It's derivative. I think I'm just sick of superhero movies in general more than ever, especially when it's just another generic origin story. This one feels exceedingly derivative. We're outside of a bunch of scenes of George Lopez doing random improv comedy. It's just Iron Man. The clone antagonist thing is back, which even Marvel kind of managed to get away from, and just the generic origin stuff. And it's just really generic. It's Hispanic Iron Man with a moderate twist. They got the cutting edge social commentary on there to spice it up, try to make it like the Black Panther for Mexicans, where like there's a moral, where like cartoonishly evil white women who fly around in robot helicopters with giant claws on them are bad because they buy Mexican people's land and they're racists and they call Mexican people Jose when that's not their name. And like if you're an Uncle Tom, you're almost as bad as the white woman, but then you can't kill the Uncle Tom because he's Mexican too, and he has a sad backstory, and he'll kill Susan Sarandon because Blue Beetle's not allowed to kill even though everyone else can. And then like exciting social commentary, like the rich girl, she's Mexican. Susan Sarandon's...
No, she's not. She's Brazilian and white.
Susan Sarandon's niece is Brazilian, so it's okay that she's rich because she feels sad that she didn't have a family, and she says, "You're lucky, Blue Beetle, because you have a family, even though you don't have money, you're true happiness." It's real deep and cutting edge stuff that a movie has never explored before. I was racist against Mexicans until I saw this movie, and it really turned my life around. It's generic. It's fine enough, I guess. It doesn't offend me. But it's just even more the same after so many years of the same, and this one it feels exceedingly derivative. And at this point, unless you're Matt Reeves doing something weird or James Gunn doing something weird, I'm just so burnt out on the generic origin story where the guy gets the power and goes woohoo and fights the clone antagonist. I'm so fucking tired of it all. I can't bother anymore. And God, if you don't have an idea for something original, just don't bother. We don't need a 15th Iron Man clone after Ant-Man and Iron Man 2 and Ant-Man 2 and well, Ant-Man 3 is not really, it's just Rick and Morty, but there's a lot of Black Panther's an Iron Man clone,
Yeah.
with black people. This is an Iron Man clone, but with Mexican people. It's all so tiring. I'm over it. I still thought this was like fine enough. It's fine. If this movie came out 15 years ago, I'd be like, wow, that was neat, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, Connor, what'd you think of Blue Beetle?
Well, there's a lot of dumb shit in Blue Beetle. There's a lot of shit I think is good. It's occasionally it has original ideas, but it sits on a crutch that I wonder how much is studio mandated of. There's a crutch of, well, this concept's a lot like Iron Man, so let's just kind of do our own Iron Man spin. And then occasionally they get kind of creative with it. Occasionally it's kind of fun. Mostly just really generic.
Well,
Honestly, I've never been a huge Blue Beetle fan. Anybody in the lineage, really. But I think it would have been more fun to have a Ted Kord Booster Gold buddy cop movie. And then you could just make Ted Kord like Hispanic or something. Maybe have little Jaime be his sidekick. You could do something more creative, like maybe instead of having the daughter love interest of Ted Kord, you could have like an old retired Ted Kord. He kind of has to like take Blue Beetle under his wing and be like,
that could be fun.
I knew Dan. You could get a little flashback of like a young Ted Kord kind of being mentored under Dan before Dan died, because Dan was able to use the Scarab, and now Jaime can use the Scarab. So maybe Ted Kord is like the only guy who really
They could have just
knows, and Jaime's like, I don't want to take the mantle of the Blue Beetle. The Blue Beetle's like a lame gimmick. But then, I don't know, you kind of have like this like mentorship.
have George Lopez play Ted Kord.
Sure.
Yeah.
Honestly, sure. Who cares?
And he's like,
You
fat
could still
and
set
old
it in
and
Mexico and just do like George Lopez, and he's like, I don't fit in my super suit anymore, which would be kind of a cheesy like, you know, joke they've done in like The Incredibles and shit. But you could just do it.
Yeah, you could.
It'd be a lot less derivative, even though you could still kind of be derivative, because there's still a lot of aspects of superheroes and comic books that haven't been explored. Uncharted territory in the cape shit genre, and this movie decided to chart all the same territory.
Yep.
He sees his dad in heaven, much like Black Panther sees his dad in the ancestral plane. He fights a clone antagonist of a bigger size and probably more well trained, but he uses his slight extra knowledge of the technology and good pure heart to win the day.
Yeah.
It's a pretty common superhero plot.
Yeah. Iron Man, Black Panther, Iron Man 2, Ant-Man.
I think it would have been cool.
2.
You know, there's a lot of angles to take the Blue Beetle character. You could have done like I said, if you want to use Jaime. A lot of this whole movie is set in South America. Why not make it where Blue Beetle is kind of the Latino equivalent of Batman, and then he kind of takes Jaime under his wing, and he's trying to keep up and teach this guy who has powers, superhero stuff. You could also have an aspect of like Ted Kord being kind of jealous, like his mentor was able to use the Scarab, and Jaime's able to use the Scarab, and he was never able to harness that power.
Yeah.
There's a lot of interesting shit you could do. And they kind of set it up as the sequel is going to be that. I guess. I didn't watch the end credits scene, but I've read about it when I was taking a shit, because I was like, is it worth staying? It's like it alludes to the fact that Ted Kord is there. But then it went to like normal ass credits, and I was like, oh, it's not like Marvel where they do kind of somewhat entertaining credits and then do the important mid-credits scene.
No,
and then have to
just
gag at the end. It's like, no, you
9
gotta sit
minutes
through
of blank credits to see Ted Kord say, I'm alive.
Yeah, I wasn't interested in doing that. So the idea, I think, is kind of going to come up in the sequel that may or may never happen, depending if this movie's a flop or not. I don't know. I just... Blue Beetle doesn't have to be a derivative character. Otherwise, you could have done... Here's another one. If you don't want to do Ted Kord training Jaime, but you want to do Jaime, Ted Kord's best friend Booster Gold is sad that his friend Ted dies. But when a kid comes over with the Scarab, Booster Gold has to travel through time with Jaime to
take the little young
save
under
the
his
past. I don't know.
Save
Like,
Ted
do
Kord.
something fucking different.
Like,
Do something different than the same shit. Because they took the easy route, and the easy route is let's make Iron Man with some Spider-Man humor sprinkled in, and sprinkle a little of this from a different superhero movie, sprinkle a little
bit
of that,
Mexican flavor
little
on
Black
top.
Panther, where we kind of have like, you know, superheroes are typically very American. So you sprinkle Mexico in.
They didn't play a lot with the Mexican concept outside of like
No.
a couple scenes where there's like 1,000 people at one tiny table and they say we're Mexican. And George Lopez says I hopped the border essay and falls over.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know. It was exactly what was promised from the trailers and stuff.
Yep.
And
It was.
it was made to a decent quality. And perhaps if other superhero movies that it's riffing on weren't existent and at that superior often, then maybe my complaints would fade to black and I would have no complaints about the route they went. But as it stands, I was sitting there thinking, wouldn't it be cool if they did this, or wouldn't it be cool if they did that? You can still keep the themes, because a lot of like the themes and stuff, not original ideas to film, like Family Good and stuff, but at least you could kind of riff on it. But it's the superhero aspects of this superhero film that are most derivative. And I don't think the characters or the performances were bad. I guess the main character's in Cobra Kai, and I had fun watching him. He seemed like a good, charismatic little dude. He probably would be a great choice for Jaime. Or I don't think probably. He was a great choice for Jaime. And I thought George Lopez was fun.
George Lopez kind of breathed some life into it. Susan Sarandon's really bad.
Susan Sarandon is really bad in this movie.
The part when she pulls out the giant robot claw from her helicopter and says, "Release the giant mega claw." I started laughing. That was the only laugh I got out of the fucking movie.
Yeah. I don't know. Overall, yeah. Kind of a missed opportunity more than inherently bad. I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
Aiden, would you recommend Blue Beetle?
It's very derivative, but it's also fine. I can't be fucked to recommend this in theaters because it's just Iron Man again. It's going to be on HBO in 6 months. Just watch it on HBO. It's fine. It's exactly what you would expect it to be and nothing more. It's so derivative to the point that if you're as burnt out as I am, you're just not going to care, but it might make for fine viewing on Max one day or another. Yeah, I don't know. Definitely not in theaters. I just can't be fucked to care. It's all so fucking exhausting nowadays. Connor, would you recommend Blue Beetle?
Blue Beetle follows the Marvel formula to a T. If the Marvel formula still gets you, you're not exhausted of the Marvel formula, and you're not looking for anything particularly new, don't go into this thinking it's like one of those DC movies that are original and good. I will say, there's kind of two brands of DC movies typically, original and good, and very bad. And
this is the mid one.
And original. And this is the one where they decided, this is kind of like the Shazam movies. This movie and the two Shazam movies are like, let's just follow the Marvel formula and play it safe.
Yeah.
And it ends up with Marvel results, which is...
At least Shazam had a little bit of a twist on it, I guess.
Yeah.
But not the second one. The second one fucking stunk. But the first one felt relatively fresh at the time.
See, The Flash is still the most interesting DC movie because, like, DC makes a lot of original movies that I think are kind of amazing and a lot of original movies that are shitty. And The Flash is, like, the only one that's very original and kind of falls in the middle.
Yeah.
Besides that first 20 minutes, which is just a Marvel movie.
Yeah, that first 20 minutes is fucking Marvel.
This is just a fucking Marvel movie.
Yeah, this is the most unoriginal of the DC projects. Even the Snyder films, for all the shit
the Snyder films do not follow any formula.
Those are
Suicide
very
Squad
original movies.
Both the Suicide Squads don't follow the formula to very differing results.
I don't think there's a less formulaic movie on Earth than whatever the fuck Batman vs Superman is trying to be.
It's a mess.
Borderline schizophrenic. And
I'll tell you, The Mummy followed the Batman vs Superman formula, which is just make some incomprehensible universe-building BS.
Yeah. It's a...
Mother sweet tea.
For all the shit I give Snyder, he made original things.
I think we end this
I
video on a quote.
Do you want to drink Mother's sweet tea? It's actually pee.
Oh my god, sweet tea. And the whole place blows up. That's what happens when you drink Mother's sweet tea.
When I was a kid, my mom would take me behind the refrigerator and say, "That mouse is Chuck E. Cheese." That's my George Lopez impression.
That's another good quote to end this on. Here's one more quote to end this on. I'm not fat, I'm fluffy.
My favorite George Lopez quote.